So the most common one there's a couple common ones actually that I think we see here in the region quite often.
Ooh.
Yeah, based on the amount of affluency, success and ambitious people that circulate in such an area. One of the first ones and most kind of known is called grandiose narcissism. And this is where basically we're super charming, probably arrogant, we're quite shiny, we're very successful, they've got great game, okay?
Good chat.
And ultimately they have a lot of hype around themselves, so much so that actually delusional around their own grandiosity, and there's this level of specialness to them. So that's a popular one.
Because it was alluded to earlier that cities can attract more narcissists in certain industries as well. So that would be a big one here in Dubai, perhaps. What else are we seeing commonly?
Yeah, but it's important to remember just because somebody is self-righteous, it doesn't make them a narcissist. So everything we're talking about today, just because you can identify one or two traits, it probably doesn't mean you have narcissistic traits. But if they start stacking up and the numbers are increasing and you go, oh yeah, then possibly we could be starting to go on that mild to severe spectrum.
What else is in your on your list of types, Charlie?
Yeah, so we've got a communal narcissist as well. And this is ultimately where they use their goodwill of others as a way of also potentially projecting that I'm special. So maybe they do above normal levels of volunteering. Maybe they do above levels of humanitarian work, right? And it gives them that almost I'm better than you sense of things. And then, you know, this one controversially as well, because I know where we are in the region, but this idea of spirituality or culty spaces around
I've got people coming to
around
mind
toxic positivity as well, because all of this is alluding more to I'm better than you because my way is right and your way is wrong. Or I'm doing more, therefore I have superiority over you, which then goes back to that grandiosity. I'm shiny. I can be charming because I'm doing all of this goodwill gesture. So that's the second type.
Okay, number three.
Obviously, Dr. Davusala just said about the vulnerable aspect. So this is where we've got high victim mentality around ourselves. For example, it's not fair. They've got more money than me. That's why I'm not succeeding, right? Or I don't know. I never had the chances because I didn't go to a certain school, or my parents didn't. So they
Poor me.
Yeah. So that goes then almost into that kind of vulnerable narcissism where I'm always being the victim, and then there's that toxic negativity of it as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Number four.
Self-righteous.
Okay.
This one is interesting. So
Why
this
are you
is
saying it like that?
Yeah. So this is the black and white mentality. There's no maneuver. Strict routines. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. It's almost this robotic obedience within their belief system. And also like the devalue of human emotion, devaluing human frailty or mistakes. And if you don't hold this line, then therefore you're wrong. And therefore it goes back into I'm self-righteous. And then it links back to grandiose.
They sound like a great person to have a dinner party with.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Well, you know, I do a lot of exercise as well. And sometimes strict regimes, certain meal plans, certain this, certain that, very rigid. Okay. We could argue, is this healthy or not?
So that's the self-righteous. And then is that in at number 6?
No, we have neglectful.
Okay.
So this is one of lack of empathy, where we invalidate, we dismiss. So narcissists do have cognitive empathy. Okay.
What does that mean?
It means that they can access it when they want to, or when they're trying to show their game face.
Yeah, okay.
So in the beginning, when we meet somebody, for example, especially in a romantic field, or it's an interview for a job or whatever it might be, we put on our best shiny selves, right? And in that, we can be empathetic when someone's potentially being vulnerable to show that we're human. Because a narcissist wants to have great supply of people. They need people. They don't want to say they need people, but they do. Because if they're not being admired, they're not being reassured, they're not being complimented by others, then ultimately their huge insecurity and their fragile psyche is activated.
So how do narcissists get away with it, especially in the early stages of a romantic relationship?
Yeah. So remember I said earlier that they have great game. They're almost like a shapeshifter, almost like in camouflage of a way of meeting their needs. Now, in the very beginning, and this is where the manipulation part comes in, and it can come into like the dominance and the reassurance. We can link it to love bombing. Most people have heard of what that is. So just to recap, it's ultimately when we go above normal levels of kind of attachment, compliments, gifts, quality time, talking about the future. It can be quite heavy at the beginning when we meet a particular romantic partner, right? And because most people with these manipulation tactics know, well, if I start to unpick someone's self-worth, if I start to pick at somebody's belief system, they're never going to fall in love with me. And if they don't fall in love with me, and here's the hard truth, I can't then manipulate them intentionally or unintentionally, knowing that I'm doing it.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. Do narcissists know what they're doing? Is this a strategic game plan, or is this all subconscious?
Well, arguably, I don't think it matters. Most of this is subconscious. Most people aren't deliberately going out of their way to deliberately manipulate people. And if they are, then we, bridge into sadism and psychopaths and all of that, which is obviously not where we're going today. But they're not doing it intentionally. And most of the time, they might pour into a little bit of their vulnerability or pour into a little bit of their life where they're like, yeah, I'm normal and I'm special, because most people today are educated. Most narcissists are very well read. They might have even had a few, sessions of therapy themselves where they're learning about these things. It's on podcasts, it's on Audible, like it's everywhere, right? So we can quite easily start to learn how to be a better relationshipper.
A couple of really interesting quick questions here saying, is it more common in men or women?
I don't think there is a gender difference. But when we go back to looking at avoidance, there are far more avoidantly attached men, which would suggest possible narcissism. Whereas anxious in women, which could be, obviously, when we were talking about vulnerable,
different types.
Yeah, exactly. Different types linked to gender.
And message here saying, in my honest opinion, it's a generational issue exacerbated by social media. I do think a lot of people come out and play on social if they're narcissists, and I've seen this a lot around relationships.
And because people with narcissistic traits, they do know actually the difference between right and wrong, because if they're not doing it at the beginning, or if they do it in a public setting where they've got their good shape shift of space on, should we say, or their good camouflage, it's what happens behind closed doors. And that's when the picking of that other person, loss of self, loss of identity, maybe their I'm not good enoughness, shall we say, starts trickling in, their self-doubt, etc. So going back to that viewer's question, it's like if they've got their game face on and they're in that public setting, everyone's just going to think they're that shiny, kind of new, exciting, charming, intelligent. Oh, I want to be part of them. They need people around.
So, again, I'm thinking of someone else I know. They've left the country now, so it's fine. Does that mean that when they get busted, and which does happen, they then move on to the next crowd, the next friend, the next group, and new people to admire them and serve them and to suck energy from?
Great question. So narcissists are very restless. They love novelty. They love excitement. They love new shiny things. If their admiration or their reassurance or their very fragile their fragile, insecure, fragile psyche is challenged at any point, yes, they will monkey branch. They will always have new relationships. They never really go far. They're constantly circling the new. If they've got a new relationship that's exciting, if they've got a good job, they've had a good day, maybe they've had lots of compliments, maybe something happened amazingly at work, they've got a new car, their empathy will come through, and that niceness, that shininess of that shape-shifting camouflage will be present. But very quickly, if they have a bad day or their partner challenges them about something they're unhappy with, or I don't want to do this, or this is my need. No, you can't have that need. Actually, I want to do this. This is my way. They'll very quickly shift into self-blame and gaslighting tactics.
Anonymous message here, and it will become clear why this person has left their name off, saying, "Hi both, a good friend has started a relationship with a narcissist. There's no doubt in my mind that he is. He's got all the traits, arrogance, utter self-centeredness. He imagines he conceals behind a facade of likability and bonhomie that I find sickening. I'm dumbfounded because my friend is the last person I ever thought would fall for him. She's smart, funny, warm, and really emotionally intelligent. 3 months ago, I would have laughed at any suggestion that she'd be with this guy, but he's clearly found a vulnerability, as they do. My problem is, what do I do?"
First of all, what I would say to this message is, first of all, just observe, because there could be your own stuff that's being triggered, but also just observe for your friend. And when I say observe, it's stuff like this. So once things are all rosy and shiny at the beginning and there's possibly lots of love bombing and they've got their best mask on and we're falling heavily in love, because someone with narcissistic traits needs us to fall really, really hard. They do not want an equal. They want a fan. They want someone who genuinely worships the ground they walk on. And it's only after, shall we say, the lust phase, the honeymoon phase, where that starts to crack, right? Triggers are starting. There's loads of other things which we won't go into. But ultimately, if this said friend starts to justify the good days over the bad, because narcissistic traits will plant just enough good that outweighs the bad. But over time, the inconsistency becomes consistent in the detrimental impact of self.
So what happens? What I'm certainly not saying this is about your friend that who's just messaged in, but in dynamics that you've seen in the past, what impact does it have on mental health, self-esteem, confidence, identity, self-worth?
Yeah. So the impact on the other person, ultimately, they will start to justify bad behavior. They will start to not understand the difference between up and down. They'll start to have confusion. Oh, I thought it was. Oh no, it's that, right? They start to ultimately question their own memories, questions their own conception of particular environments, things that were or were not said. Maybe they start to question their goodness. So narcissistic traits always raise the bar. They might be really happy for you and tell them that they're the love of your life, right? In that love bombing, lustful stage. But then slowly what they start to do is unpick the goodness of you, because they want you to still be manipulative. They want to be in control, which is why they don't ever want equal, healthy partnerships at times. But we've already fallen in the beginning because they showed us all that amazing stuff.
So here's my question then. Can you turn these things around? Could someone listening today go, "Oh gosh, this is actually ringing a lot of alarm bells. I need to get strict with my narcissist. I need to put boundaries in place." Can you ever set effective boundaries with a narcissist?
So if you want, and this is the brutal hard truth, if you want the relationship to work, you have to be completely subject to their wants and needs. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If you start challenging, if you start upholding boundaries, and you start highlighting even if it's a positive, healthy way, like in my couples therapy or a certain clients that I have, as soon as we, even in the most constructed, healthy, communicative ways, start to say, "This is hurting." Right, this is really hurting. I want you to see my hurt. I want you to almost hear and understand where I'm coming from. I'm not blaming you, but this is hurting me. All of that. I feel stuff that we hear all the time.
Is that just like a red flag to a bull? Like, okay, now I know some vulnerabilities that I can just go after, rather than, okay, I hear what you're saying and I respect that.
And then it will be, well, no, that's not how it happened. Okay. Or you might feel that way, but that's not how it is. And that's when this gaslighting of trying to question and untweak and unpick your reality. Mm-hmm. And that's quite a scary place, because that's when we get confusion, loss of self, self-blame, self-doubt, our self-esteem, the numbness, the social isolation kicks in. Maybe we start to freeze and numb ourselves to appease the criticism that will come later for speaking up.